You're going to write an essay on this piece and also the Simon Schama videos. There's 4 parts, so make sure you study those closely when you write the essay on this piece. Very important, very impactful piece, both in the art world and the event that it depicts was a very important part of history. Make sure you understand why it's unusual and look up the research on this in the book. All right, stories and histories. Artists sometimes use stories as subject matter to express cultural history, shared experiences. Space cells, area of within a work of art referred to as painting within a painting. This happens a lot, and we have used these. We know about space cells, whether you think you know it or not. The first thing I'm going to show you is St. Francis giving his mantle to a poor man and the vision of the heavenly city. So this has 3 space cells really within one piece. So there's this room here where the angel comes down to speak to Mary, impregnate Mary. There is also this event in St. Francis' life and also the dream of the heavenly city. So the heavenly city is sort of floating up here, and there's not an exact line cutting this off like you'll see in the next few images. But it's close. There is sort of a border of the balcony here to cut that off. And it's funny, sometimes I think when I looked at work like this in a museum when I was younger, I didn't really notice that this wasn't just an imaginary open area, because this is a bedroom. There would be a curtain or even a wall or a locked door. So we're opening this space so we can see 3 things at once, okay? There's another piece, very similar, and we have a lot of different space cells going on, a lot of activity. This whole drama is basically told in these different space cells. Okay, our knowledge of space cells is very similar. Right here, you see there's 3 things going on in one page on a comic strip. This is Robert Williams. If you're not familiar with his work, he is comic book influenced heavily. He was a comic book artist in the 60s, and this work has sort of a space cell here going on, the idea of trench mouth. Excuse me. This is literally a trench in World War I, supposedly, and the trenches things were fought in the trenches. So there's that space cell, there's the whole image, and then there's this little pop-out window right there. Okay, so that's what space cells are. Looking outward in the here and now. So this is a lot more about the day-to-day. This is about the real world. We have Edward Hopper, and this is unusual even at this time. We're not depicting a queen or king or an important event in history, nothing like that. Guernica, as we saw, is depicting, even though it's abstract, is depicting a real event in time. This is just a guy at a gas station, very mundane. The sun's going down, there's no one there, and it's just the day-to-day, the mood, the feeling of the artist, and it's not really so much to do with anything epic or historic. Okay, this is an interesting counterpoint to a lot of the other Egyptian art that we've looked at. When they were depicting the slaves and the day-to-day people with livestock, they depicted them quite realistically and not with the usual canon that we see with Egyptian art, with the shoulders one way and the profile another. So that's kind of interesting. But there were within the tombs these depictions. Originally, I believe, in a lot of tomb burial, they actually buried the people, the slaves, and the livestock that went with that emperor or pharaoh, and then they moved on to doing sculpture. So thank heaven for sculpture. Okay, another piece that has both space cells, and I'm sorry the poor the poor quality of this. This is from the publisher, and this is supposedly their high quality image. I don't understand what happened here, but he's doing collage here. There's a new word that was invented for Robert Rauschenberg called assemblage, and collage still suits here because it's a 2-dimensional form. Assemblage is 3-dimensional. At any rate, he's got these windows, different space cells going on here, and he's also got repeated themes. You can't see them that well in this slide, but there are different towers in here. There's some other oranges, and the Statue of Liberty is here twice in this way, and we also have the American Eagle, so icons of the American power structure. And this is a everyday sort of a piece, if that makes sense. He's depicting everyday objects. Looking inward, so this is quickly a young man speaking to the dead. So that is something that doesn't exactly happen, but we also think about inside ourselves, you know, what do we want to depict that we can't otherwise see, and that we're looking inward. Frida Kahlo, another really famous artist, she holds to the idea that this is reality, and she maybe did have this many monkeys at one time. I don't think she did though. But she is also a magic realist, is very different than surrealism. The surrealist, and she's contemporaneous, meaning the same time she was painting at the same time the surrealists were painting. She is not a surrealist. This is not a surreal image, at least in her mind. She is a magic realist, meaning that the culture that she belongs to, she's from Mexico, believes that the imaginative world is ghosts and different embodiments of self or other imagined things are there alongside with you all the time, and you can see them. That was her way of thinking about things. Invention and fantasy. You're going to also write about a couple of these pieces. This is Hieronymus Bosch. This is quite old. Let me get the date again. 1505 to 1510. This is so bizarre. And this is actually the Museum of Prado in Madrid, Spain. I got to see this in person. It's a really bizarre piece. And he's got all this crazy stuff going on about the indulgent life and literally kind of orgies and sexual bizarre things happening. But this is what he imagines this world to be like. And there's nothing really